See, I've known this man for a while. It's surreal that I'm sitting across from him. I'm about to ask him questions. All the things I wondered that I haven't been able to ask. Today, I'm using the license of being the interviewer to ask Adjetey Anang, a very, very, very celebrated, gifted Ghanaian actor and producer. Welcome to the Asasi Breakfast Show.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much.
Ayemi, there.
Wow.
Good to see you.
Yeah, same here, bro.
So, you, of all the things you could have done with your life, why did you choose this life?
Did I choose this life? I think I accepted this life, more or less. Yeah.
But I mean, so what were the things you were? I mean, when we were all growing up, we have these interesting ideas.
That's right.
I grew up with a friend who one day just said to his mom, I mean, we all have weird and crazy ideas, depending on what, tickled your fancy.
That's right.
And as a child, what was yours?
Well, as a child, I had nothing. I would just imitate people. They say they want to be a doctor. I say I want to be a doctor. They want to say a lawyer. I say a lawyer. But internally, I knew I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I knew that Dad would drop hints of following his footsteps, and he was a biochemist.
Okay.
But the disadvantage for him was that I had been exposed to movies, and so I had samples of what fatherhood looked like with the family, and all I saw was father around kids jumping on their shoulders and necks, and they're going for picnics, and they're going here and there, and I thought that was really cool, and then I compared that to my dad, and I was like, oh no, Dad is just rigid, mechanical, work, home, work, home, no social life. We hardly go out, and even when we do, then it's either for an outdooring or a funeral or something of that nature. So I was like, okay, so this is what it means to be a biochemist. Then no.
I don't want this life.
I don't think I want this.
You see, but I'm sure somewhere along the line he would have told you, Obanina.
Yeah.
To wait to Ubenyini Abitu, or you will discover when you're old enough. But it's great to have you here. And you to talk about your image that you had formed in your mind of what a family unit should be, like the father and the children, all around. What was your own family like? How many were you, and which one of you was jumping on your dad's shoulder?
Well, none of us dared. He was such a tyrant, and so when he's away, then we have the liberty to do the things that we're not supposed to do. I mean, Mom had a soft touch, but he would punish you with taking away the puddings and the chocolates and etc. But we're just me and my sis, and so we're two. Of course, during long vacations we have cousins coming in, or we going over, and then we have the bigger family setting. But it was just the two of us. The image that I had was all idealistic, if you will, because I was copying from what I'd seen in movies. I was exposed to movies at a very tender age. My uncles, of course, they did that, and so my image was of westernized and nuclear family, and surprisingly, we were geographically caught in the middle. We're sandwiched by, to my left, the house that I call the house that smoke never dies, because it was a kinky house. There was always cooking going on. Uncles, aunties married in that same space. And then to our right was a typical example of a nuclear family where you have the Ayivos, I remember. Mr. Ayivo was married to a German. And so they had a typically, Western kind of, and my dad, always tilted to them, and then sort of for us to, really have a bond with them. But the fun wasn't there.
The fun was somewhere else.
That's the irony, because that is the image that I had, and yet I wanted to go to the house with the smoke, because we had, all the gota to gota chaskili, and there was drama, and because every day there's fight, and we want to, so we're looking up, wake up in the morning, and we're going to peep through the fence to see whether some fight has just developed or is developing. And it was exciting to be in that space, but it gave us some perspective about what the world would be like growing up, and it was quite interesting.
Looking back today, how much of that do you think has shaped the Adjetey Anang we know now?
Well, it has shaped me in ways that sometimes unconscious, because then it gives you insight to that the two worlds out there, and just the fact that to our right, they had the opportunity to go to school and go to the highest that they could, and then to our left, lots of dropouts. Give you a perspective that you don't judge people, the circumstances beyond their control, and therefore it made me a bit humble, given that I had the opportunity to also at least go to school and had my family backing me in almost everything, and so that's how I approach life. That we're all not perfect, and we have those who are not able to make it, and therefore we shouldn't look down on them, and that really gave me that outlook.
What was life like at Labone Secondary School?
Oh, Labone was pretty quiet, especially when I became the school prefect as well.
You became school prefect.
Yeah, I did.
You don't like talking.
Yeah.
How did you campaign to become school prefect?
It was kind of strange why they put that on me, because I don't remember us doing elections. It was more like, you
are going to be
school prefect
by appointment of the head teacher
regime, and so it was because he was a guy who I was in a company of bad guys, I love their company, and yet I wouldn't behave like them, and they accepted me into their fold, and they would even go like, no one where they're passing around the cigarettes, and when they get to me, they say, hey, skip them, that kind of, there was this protection, because they loved me, they liked me, and yet there are times where they got away because they would do one or two things out there off the book, and then for a school prefect you have to report them or something, but I won't. I'll cover them and all that. So I thrived with them. I thrived with the goodies as well, and I think that's what made my tenure special, and I didn't give me much trouble.
It's quite interesting that if you looked at the account of your time in Labone,
right,
and growing up, you sort of have been always between two worlds.
That's right.
That's right. How do you navigate this and just keep saying?
Yeah,
it's when people are passing things. By the way, today's World No Tobacco Day. So
I know,
and you avoided it.
Yeah, and it's not a safe space, because one would say that you're either for us or against us. There's no middle ground here. You have to make up your mind where you belong. And as I grew up, I realized that I needed to choose a side, because I knew where I was going, and therefore, because there's a way in which these things silently, because the company that you move along with, they kind of rub off you in a lot of ways that you don't know, psychologically, and then later on you realize that you're bearing fruits of those kind, and that's where you have to be careful. And so for me, especially when I came into the spotlight, where the Pusha thing came out there, and I was almost in everybody's house, if you will, and then people started looking up to me. People would expect that when I come into a certain space, they would expect some, boisterousness, the girls should watch out, and kind of thing, and so it made me a bit careful. I was very, very deliberate about the choices that I was making, and because people were looking out to either confirm that, oh, he's Pusha in real life, that's him, I told you, or there are those who were like, oh no, he's not, he's just himself, and he plays the character, so it made me very, very conscious about those, and therefore it wasn't just, as you were, sort of sending the message to our audience or viewers, but how did those messages or content speak to me myself, as Adjetey? It's like looking into the mirror, and so these were some of the things that I considered and made choices on, and it's kept me going.
It's quite interesting. In the mid 90s, or it was rather late 90s, when Things We Do for Love popped up. We were living our Ghanaian dream. Then one day, some TV show is on the TV.
Yeah.
Some guy be Adjetey Anang playing Pusha. How did you get that role?
So one week with Akwaku, who was a friend, and he was then working with Advantage, Lentas, the production section, and then it was a radio thing. Yeah, they wanted, it was a youth-based thing, and he thought that
it was called Speakeasy.
Speakeasy, that's right.
I happen to have co-hosted Speakeasy with Priscilla Boama.
Was it Sefako or something?
Before Sefako, it was Priscilla Boama and
Right, Priscilla, that's right. Yeah, and so he threw me in there to attempt a character. And it wasn't even Pusha then. I think I played BB, and then when we started that, it made the impact that they were all expecting, and then they decided to take it into to television, and that's where Ivan Kwashiga said he wanted me to switch roles and look at Pusha. For a moment I thought, what's wrong with Ivan? I mean, Pusha, I can't play Pusha. Come on, man, this guy's a bad dude. This is bad news. But then I had just stepped into School of Performing Arts, and I was still learning, the acting. And so it was for me an opportunity to put theory into practice, and that's how I accepted the role and began investigating and researching,
but little did we know that, I mean, no matter where you go, we will always remember you as Pusha.
Oh yeah.
But how did you get into the character? Because you made mention of how sometimes people would look at you and think that you are the character you portray.
Yeah.
Because it's so believable. How did you get to be able to deliver on it?
So I mean, here was a character who my mom, my parents would warn me about every day, and I'm gonna play this character, and I needed to make him live. And how do I make him realistic, and how can people relate to this character? And so I decided, based on the concept and what Pusha was intended to be, I decided to put 3 characters into one. And so I picked from two characters who were mates.
Okay.
Basikro, he had this walk-in, but I exaggerated the walk, and I don't even remember his real name. Basikro. Yeah, I know. And then there was this guy boy in my hood who is very loud. I mean, with all the jargons, the phrases, and he's the kind of guy. He's very, very meticulous. He's the kind of guy who watches a movie. You better not let him tell you, because he starts from the beginning. I mean,
God,
it starts like, Charlie, they are just boom, 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 and Osham nigga, he gives you all the soundtrack with all the names. He tells you everything. You wouldn't want to watch the movie again, and that's very dramatic and loud. And so I brought this into the character as well, just so that they can relate to, and indeed, one of the guys said that, Charlie, say you work like Papu for the things, like Classic Crow for the things, so I knew that, look, this is it, just to make people realize that this is not a character from outer space. He's here with us. He's in the same neighborhood. We have those kinds of guys in our neighborhoods, and that's how it really helped, of course, with the help of Ivan and the scriptwriter as well.
Yeah. I mean, your life is not just about acting. It's also about finding love while you were in school. A few trips to the International Students Hostel to see a certain alum.
Yeah, but let me tell you where it all began. Because we were doing things for love, and so she was on set on Things to Do for Love.
You weren't just reading your script.
Well, you just kind of make sure that where your surroundings, you're safe and where you are, and having the likes of Elom, Yolanda, and the rest made you feel like, oh, you're in good company. And obviously, she attracted me not just because of her looks, but also because of her composure. She seemed very disciplined. She could articulate very well, and I thought that, oh, this is a nice lady. I'd want to know her more, and so that's where it picked off. And then we met on campus, Legon. And so we moved from stage 1 to stage 2,
and then you've remained inseparable since then. I mean, what has it been like being a husband?
Oh, it's been
being
tough.
Responsible for another human being.
It's been tough.
Submitting.
It's been tough. I mean, I wouldn't lie to you. Sometimes, when you social media has a way of just depicting all is rosy, and yet, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I've had to do a lot of unlearning, because there were things that I didn't look. I'm coming from a compound setting, not compound setting, from a family setting where we don't tell each other we're traveling until we get to our destination, and so I get to this. An uncle gets to the station and like, oh, Anyemi, Charlie, if you had a number, USA, quick one. Everything is kept secret. There's this superstitious connotation to everything, and so we keep everything. And people you dare not pick somebody's phone when it's ringing if you have the wife or the husband. And then I come into this marriage setting, and for Elom, it's like, this is what we do enough. I mean, when my daddy's phone rings, mommy can pick it up, vice versa. That's it. And then here I was, you can't even know my password. I can't know your password. I'm like, where is this girl coming from? So we needed to really begin to, find how we would go about our own, what makes us comfortable, where's the convergence point and all that. And so I had to unlearn that, it's not like she's trying to get into my business, but rather she was building a wall around me to protect me from my naivety. Sometimes people send me emojis and certain phrases, and I think that there's nothing wrong with it. And she says that, no, when a girl says this, hey, watch out.
More now.
So all these things were learning processes for me, and I began to open up more than bury things within me as I'd learned. And that, because of the nature of the business, remember that we're in the space where social media did not exist. True. And therefore I had nobody sensitized me on how to behave under the spotlight. It got to a point where messages would come, and I'm like, wow, people are commending me. Girls come on my page and they'll do anything to meet me, to take a picture with me and all that. And I'll take my time and answer every message. It was Facebook then. I didn't know that I was wasting my time, and it got me a lot of trouble, because then you get to a space where you become as if you're untouchable. You're on a certain pedestal where everybody's like, hey, you're the boss, and so you kind of get into a zone where you're leading ladies on, etc., and the conversations get very serious. It gets into spaces where if you're married, there are lines that you're crossing, and that brought me some heartaches, with my family, and it's been tough, but God being so good, we've had a way of every barrier we've come together. I'm the one who would say sorry first and want to do something about it. It's not about the number of times you fall, but when you fall, you wake up and you do something about it. That same issue comes up, and then you surmount it, and so that has been my experience so far. And it's after 16 years, I think that our journey has just started. I believe that. Yeah.
It's exactly 9 o'clock. This is the Sassy Breakfast Show. I'm Kweku Nshirado, the Rainmaker. We are having a close and personal conversation with celebrated actor and producer Adjetey Anang, Elom's husband. Nanaya, see, it's quite interesting how Adjetey, the honesty of saying, I had to learn, or I had to unlearn a lot of things. Isn't life all about compromise?
It certainly is. And listening to a good friend of yours, Adjetey, yesterday, Shoko, our very own, talking yesterday about premarital counselling and, if you like, the processes that people, even before marriage, have to go through to get used to the idea of accommodating to each other's presence. I think she and probably people calling into the show and the people she had in the studio could have learned a thing or two. It sounds unusually sensitive, though, for, I know it's a terribly stereotypical thing to say, but for a good girl boy, coming from learning about negotiating space with your partner. Would you say that there were kind of precedents also in your own birth family life that kind of made it easier for you?
Oh yeah, I want to believe that the communal setting also helped in a lot of ways, where we had to learn to live with one another, even though we still had, because I had lots of uncles and aunties, and some did have their own way of nurturing their children, which were a bit different from how my parents also wanted to nurture me and us, but you learn from the beginning that we all have different opinions, we all have different ways of doing things, but how do we accommodate each other? And I think that's why I was able to sort of compromise on a lot of things easier than any other person would have, and for me to accept things that were new, and to really, for me in that space, take a risk. Let's take this risk and see what happens, and so the willingness to let go and embrace this new way of life, I guess what was the foundation was for that communal, having to live with cousins, uncles and aunties, and all marriages, all sorts of marriages within that space, probably helped me unconsciously, and then it played out years later. Yeah.
There's not one way of life, and you also get used to the idea that the world doesn't revolve around you to a certain extent. You also described, I love this idea of you being the goody-goody among baddies, and you're exactly like the driver of the getaway car, or the lawyer for the mafia family, the guy in The Godfather. You're on the right side of the law, but you're quite happy, relaxed. You're relaxed about the idea of badness.
Sure.
I love it, and I wonder whether you think that actually helped you when you were moving into an acting career, because as an actor you kind of have to adopt this sort of shape-shifting approach to you are yourself. You have to be grounded in yourself, particularly physically.
That's right.
To do acting well, but you have to become somebody else.
Exactly.
You have to project into another person's mind and life in order to project a character. When you were thinking of taking on the idea of mastering the dramatic arts, what were your major hurdles, or was it actually kind of quite easy for you to slip into the role of an actor?
Well, I think that my major hurdles were being self-conscious about my upbringing, what's the what's the right word, for want of a better word, what the feeling was at the time when Adjetey was supposed to play this bad boy character, and already there was the stigma of actors who played bad character roles, that they must be the character, those characters themselves, that you played.
Like my mother would say.
Dare I say that it's not that the actors and the character they play, it's when they are fine like this.
That really does.
When they are fine like this, that's where the problem is. He's trying to run from it.
So it's like, you're too good looking to be a baddie. How can you possibly be a baddie? You come across as so smooth. So the thing of, as you said, how do you actually encapsulate the role? How do you get into it? But why you thought perhaps because you came from too respectable a background, it might be a barrier between yourself and being able to kind of act these characters who are on the wrong side of the law.
That's right. And also, I've also been nurtured to always put family first, and therefore the ideals, the virtues, or the principles, what have you. And I there was this conflict in my mind where it's like, okay, so am I not crossing the line? And where I've relegated family to the background and embracing all these bad characters that I'm warned against not to. But then I needed also to make a statement that this was the demands of acting, if you will, where you play characters that you're not in real life, and I needed to make that mark, and therefore it had a way of putting me on my toes, whereby I finished playing my character, I have to find Adjetey again. I have to be back to myself. Otherwise, the tendency of even using words that I've learned from scripts, putting on new manners and behavior because it looked and felt flashy and cool, and sometimes we can go into that direction, and there's some kind of power that these characters that we play have on us. And I needed to make a statement that, look, Mom, Dad, look, I can still play the bad dude because somebody has to play Judas Iscariot anyway. So,
some people are naturally Judas Iscariot, and some people are just naturally kind of matinee idols like yourself, you know, bit too smooth. So what do you do when you've played one of those roles where you say you might be really seduced by the mannerisms, the flash that comes with it, the kind of hardness that comes with it, you know, the macho attraction that comes with it, and then the role comes to an end, or you're between seasons if you're doing a serial, and you have to kind of come out of the character. What do you do to kind of decompress and to come back to Adjetey?
So I snap out of it. And how do I do this? Normally for every character I have, you know, a list of what really this character is all about, his character, his mannerisms, his gestures, you know, very detailed. And for me, it is like a jacket that I put on. And so once it's done, mentally, I take it off, and, you know, to have a detachment from this character, and then I move into my Adjetey space. Because the moments when I don't do that mentally, sometimes I've caught myself almost behaving like the character, and in response to, you know, somebody who is trying to, like, you know, bring out that character again because, you know, I just played it, and so it's a mental process that I do to disengage. And once I do that, you know, I'm back to myself.
You've never been caught out by Ellen or the kids saying, like, Dad, why are you saying that? Dad, or, you know, kind of.
Oh, I have a couple of times. Yeah, a couple of times. It's really made me, you know, it's the same emotion, same, you know, everything, and you know, I always say that the organist has the organ, the drummer has the drums. We have just our body, we have our emotions, and then we just replicate characters over and over again, and we need to put that in check. Otherwise, then we kind of find ourselves in spaces that we shouldn't be.
Makes it even harder because you're doing it physically.
That's right.
And I just wanted to ask whether it's any more difficult or less difficult depending on whether you're doing stage or screen.
Oh boy. So stage is I would say wahala. Stage is wahala. You know, you are, and especially with the Ghanaian audience, you know, I think that a Ghanaian audience, I've said this before, that if you can perform to the Ghanaian audience, you can perform anywhere in the world. You know, because our audience are so unpredictable. You know, people can just get up and just scream out a word, and you're in character. And sometimes some of the phrases that they use are so funny, you can just burst out laughing on stage. And
it
you
throws
have to just,
you.
Yeah, and it throws you off. And some also can really get you a bit, you know, moody and hurt or pained because somebody is saying something that shouldn't be said. And so stage is your 100% always, your best foot forward, because you can't, you know, you do a mistake, you have no chance to correct it.
There's no second take.
No, there's no second take, where the camera has the option, of the director has the option of taking the fifth take because it's the best. And so it makes it very, but what, you know, in that process, it shapes you and molds you, that you can face any challenge, and therefore screen becomes a bit easier having gone through the stage process. So stage is harder.
Stage is harder.
Stage is harder.
So if you had to choose between stage and screen,
but here's the thing: I love stage.
you love the hard stuff.
Yeah, I'll pick stage before screen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, your public property. You know, I think one of the things I've seen and probably did myself was, okay, let me confess, I still kind of don't like Bobby Brown. And you can guess why.
What he did to your girlfriend.
You know, you know, he just took my girlfriend and went and married her. You know, but you know, there are people who would have, in their own corner, probably have never met you.
Yeah.
They had a life planned for you. That, oh yeah, okay, they heard you got married. Like, oh yeah, he has to have 17 children, have the Brady Bunch. And how do you deal with that pressure of asserting expectation from people who don't know you?
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, there was this day where we had closed church, and I was standing by my wife, and then a lady comes up boldly, and she says, "Hi, Adjetey." Yes. "Oh, I hear you got married. What a shame." And then she walks away. I mean, how do you deal with this? And your wife is standing by you. I mean, how do you even defend this? I mean, because you go home and it's like, probably you know her, and you let her walk away. It's very unpredictable. And then she says there moves. I'm in shock as much as you are. So these are things that but every experience, makes us go back behind the scenes to talk about it, to see, to together know how we handle them, and you never know what's coming at you. But as always, I always have a case to prove that, look, she's the one I chose. I'm standing with her through thick and thin, and no matter whatever expectations that you have of me or whatever. But then again, as you said, you are in a space where people are looking up to you, people you don't know, people who you feel that you're mentoring them, and therefore it's made me very, very careful of even words that I put out there. I'm very particular about social media, what I'm even posting. I don't just repost without reading what it's about, or what if it's whatever agenda is supposed to serve. I'm very careful about those things, and so you kind of not free. You kind of feel like you have to do things to please the public, and go in a certain way. As you said, it's like a public servant, where you don't have a life of your own. But I try not to let that come in the way of family, because I have what I call the intentional timetable, where no matter where you're looking for me, if I have something to do, my Sundays are committed to family, the time that we're born, especially weekends. And there are times where you not get me do anywhere, because that's the family break time where we're taking a vacation or whatnot. Just to know that, look, family, I still stand by my family first. It's a way also in incorporating the young generation to accept. I went into movie space where I realized that all the guys who were married or who had serious partners never showed up. Their partners never showed up at events, and that was the culture. And it opened up windows for all sorts of characters to come into their spaces. And I thought that, no, I need to set this right, and especially where wifey was also happy about the fact that every attention was out there and they were relegated in the background. So I started to take her to events. When you invite me for an event and I can't come with my wife, I'm not going. It was to make a statement that we have to dignify our industry by ourselves. If we don't do that, nobody's going to dignify it for us. And the family the family that we're nurturing starts from how we're protective of each other, of our spouse, because when we have kids coming out, they're going to take after us, and we don't want to send the wrong message out there that the family unit is so cracked and loose and porous. I wanted to make a statement that we need to cling to our wives, need to cling to our partners, and so that it impacts society, because people are not just looking at us on the screens, they're watching even what we do out when we're not in front of the camera, and they're looking for the real us. And these are statements that we need to begin to make to impact society, because everything starts from the family setting. If it's not grounded, then society is weak in a lot of ways.
Wow, profound words from the one and only Adjetey Anang, and has joined us for an up-close and personal chat this morning on the Asasi Breakfast Show. Today is World No Tobacco Day. I will be bringing you a conversation on that, as well as a look at neonatal jaundice. Yes, it's a word I haven't heard in a very long time, but right now our attention is on Pusha. Adjetey Anang, who's here in the studio with us. So you serve in the church,
right? As
in the youth church. What exactly do you do?
So I'm now the head of the Spirits, the dramatic arts group. So basically, to ensure that whatever that we put out is conforms to the vision of the church. And so we're more like an extension of what happens on the pulpit and what the church stands for, and therefore our performances, the content should align with that, and also to let young people who have talent to be exposed, to unearth them, that they can equally do things for God in the church with their talents, not only out there, but we can also bring those in the church. And for many of these brilliant people, like your late girlfriend, unfortunately, Whitney Houston, they started from the church.
True.
And that's where they were unearthed, and then they got out in those spaces. So we're doing that, but we're giving them some grounding, preparing them that one day the spotlight will be on them, and when they go out there into those into the world, the foundation they're still grounded. That would would shape them and get them to be grounded out there. So
what's it like working with all these young people who, first of all, look up to you? You're like the superstar, but you're working with them up close.
Yeah. It's not always easy. Because you have this thing of people feel that you are perfect. You can't make mistakes. And I need to constantly remind them that I'm human. You can push me to the edge and I may bite. so let us not assume that I'm perfect, I know it all, but I'm still learning as they're learning. The gifts and talents who are doing brilliant works that I'm observing and also borrowing, and so it's not just for me, it's a talk-down thing. I'm just telling you what to do, but I'm also learning the gifts that you have, and it's a learning process for all of us. Sometimes the initial stages, they were a bit spellbound. They just sit there, look at me and stare, and not answer a question, But I needed to break it down for them not to be intimidated, and just have this brotherly, sisterly thing going about, still drawing the lines, because people can take advantage of that and begin to try and form some kind of closeness that shouldn't be, and reminding ourselves that we're in God's house, where it's a God's agenda, and we need to keep it clean, so that our works will speak, after. So it's been healthy so far. Of course, there's been challenges. There's been challenges sometimes, how to deal with the human relationships going on, and how to negotiate that, and not put in barriers that will make it healthy than we hiding anything from the authorities, etc. So it's been a learning process for me, and I think that we're doing quite well.
That's great. Now, mentoring as a subject, what has that taught you? What's the importance of mentoring for you now as a mentor? If you look back, did you receive any mentoring as an actor?
Right.
And how has that helped?
Well, I wouldn't say that I did, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but the kind of mentoring that the ideal kind of mentoring that I would have loved, I didn't get. Unfortunately, because I was caught in this compound house space, and so everything was thrown at me, and I had to, find my own way, because the examples were not good ones. Where at a point, out of 8 siblings, only one marriage stood, and most of them had children here and there. So it was such a bad platform for me. But then also, he also told me that, look, if I don't play my cards right, I would sort of replicate these, and the cycle will continue, and will continue with my son. And there has to be a cutoff point. And if it means that I was going to be the main advocate for the new generation, fine. And I've extended that to younger people out there, just that we change the scenario. Even when people look at fatherhood, and history has taught us that we keep running away from responsibilities. We don't accept pregnancies. The list goes on, and therefore celebrating even Father's Day becomes, compared to Mother's Day, what it is.
Does it exist?
There you go. So we need to change that. We need to change
Indeed.
that. But as I said, it all starts from a family setting, and how well we're able to accept our mistakes and make a difference. And sometimes we see our partners as people who are intrusive, but the bottom line, they want the best for us, and therefore if we see it as they being protective of us, then we're all on the right path. And so for me, I think that the younger generation, and for young people who I'm mentoring, it also puts some responsibility on me, on myself, that I'm practicing what I'm preaching, because I for example, there was this opportunity that I had from this alcoholic beverage company, and they wanted me to do something. It was huge. The contract was the biggest I've ever had.
And you turned it down?
Because I was in a dilemma. I had to turn it down. I go to these young people, telling them that they should focus on their books. Don't drink alcohol. Don't do drugs. Don't do that. And you know how children are. The graphics, the image stick more than the words that you're saying. True. And I'm thinking, tomorrow I go to church, and then the young person say, "Hey, Uncle Adjetey, you said we shouldn't drink alcohol. I saw you drinking alcohol on TV." That's it. I can't live with that. So I had to turn it down. That they tried to take out the part where I'm going to drink the alcohol, but the name still comes in the end. I'm like, I'm endorsing it.
Yeah.
And these children are I don't want to put them in a place where they are confused, or they're like, okay, what's he saying and what's he doing? And so I have to cut it off, and so that I don't have that. That's some of the sacrifices that you have to, especially when you accept that you're mentoring young people, directly or indirectly, and yeah, that's how it's been for me.
Now, one of the things you find is, as we find partners in life, we marry into a family.
That's right.
Your in-laws very active people in the church, and very creative themselves.
That's right.
What has the relationship been?
Oh, it's been wonderful. It wasn't wonderful in the beginning because Mommy, she passed 2 years ago. In-law, yes. But she loved the character Pusha then. I mean, there are times where Pusha doesn't appear in one episode and she's mad. She was and then later on she gets to know that her daughter is friends with this Pusha character, and it's like, oh no, the love ends on the screen. It doesn't come into my space. So there was this very, very dislike for Adjetey. And the points where she was encouraging Elom to break the relationship, the friendship, because I was bad news. It's such an irony, isn't it?
How did it change though? How did she come to the point? It changed
when she got information about my background, and so my auntie happens to be her senior in Achimota.
Okay.
And she was like, "Oh, I'm related to Auntie Nana. Oh, that must be from a good family." Because Auntie Nana was this, very, very disciplined lady. They looked up to her, and then she did further investigations, and she said, "Oh, then there's no problem."
Elom Twasso.
And we're the best of friends. And she got closer to me than even sometimes even Elom herself, and it was wonderful until her passing. And her dad has always been, your guy who likes any problem, come to me. Yeah. I know my daughter better than you, and then I'll give you some tidbits here and there. And he's very, very open doors, and a father that many people would want.
Wow. It's 25 minutes past 9. How time flies. And I want to continue this conversation till tomorrow.
Well, and I'm sure so would our listeners want us to continue it till tomorrow, and might even want to, kind of put Adjetey on the spot if they had the opportunity. But yeah, it's just been wonderful. I sort of just love the way you have this very intentional way of going about what you do, and very purposeful and clear-sighted way of going about what you do. Wish more of our artists could be like Adjetey, instead of falling in love with the bad boy characters that they aren't really, and that they can't even play that well.
Yeah. So news just coming in this morning. the family of the celebrated writer, Professor Adjetey have indicated that she's passed on to eternity in the early hours of this morning. Imagine a day like this when we've got you here having this conversation. It's going to change the complexion of our chat for a bit. But did you read any of her writing?
Yeah, I actually played Nansawa. That's right. The dilemma of a ghost.
Dilemma of a ghost.
Yeah.
So I have a photograph that I shared with her daughter, Kina, recently. And it was, I love to read. My kids love to read. And there was this period where we decided we're going to read African writers.
Right.
And so there was a day he was actually reading and I took a photo, And then it was some weeks later, we saw an interview with Professor Adjetey. And then he says, oh, that was the book I was reading. So I went back to the photograph and said, there. And I promised him, I said, you know what? I'm going to take you to go and meet Prof. and show her you love her books, because he read pretty much all the books that he could find.
Right.
But great woman, Benny.
Yeah.
Great woman.
I mean, for almost everyone who went through secondary school, I mean,
you read it at some
I mean,
Yeah.
you and she shaped. I remember back then. So back in Presec, I was in the school drama club, right? And you know, Presec Drama Club is very noted for exploits. I mean, those secondary school back then. We went to Cape Coast. No, you see, we went to Cape Coast, right? They have this thing they call Studra Fest at the CNC, and I'm sure probably at the time you had your own, and a number of the drama that she had written. I mean, it was so for everybody, every Ghanaian, I mean, every millennial, and even for some of those who came just before the millennials, they would have had an encounter with Professor Adjetey. So it's been anyway for all of us. We commiserate with the family, and we believe it's a life very well lived. Very well lived.
I had the great privilege to meet her twice. Once, actually, when I was doing community radio in London, I did an interview with her. I was so nervous, and I had no idea what to ask her. And she came and she was like, "Oh, yes, you're Nanaya. Oh, you don't look like a Nanaya to me. And oh, is that what are you doing over there?" And she was just the most relaxed and laid-back person you could ever hope to meet, and one of the most generous writers of her generation. For somebody of her reputation, her international clout, you know, she brought on young writers, people that I went to school with. She met in the States. "Oh, you're a young Ghanaian, you like writing? No, you write that, right?" And she would make sure that the next time there was an anthology appearing where her work was supposed to go in, she'd bring them along with her. Amazing, very grounded woman, and never lost sight of her roots, where she came from. Her pride in her fantiness and the culture in which she grew up and everything that went with it, but at the same time completely filtered through this modern lens of how Ghana was engaging with the outside world. Amazing woman, amazing writer.
And I mean, talking about then, you know, and Pusha, I mean, as most of us knew you until got to find out even what your actual name is. And there's this question, I mean, we have broached it a bit, but you know, you are so fine, and a number of the gentlemen in the MCR, they just keep looking at you and like, this guy, I mean, you were born what, 73?
Yeah.
So 50 years, still very fresh, right?
On his way to 50.
And
2 months.
You know, and we're talking about, you know, the 7 vices, all right? And we were wondering, you know, having been on Things We Do for Love, having been that celebrated, how did you manage to escape them?
Well, I did escape all entirely, you know, because there were, as I said, I wasn't sensitized into this space of being another spotlight, and so for me, I thought that it was okay to be in the good books of every lady, And so we picked up conversations that we're not supposed to. There's some that I wanted to break off, and I was like, hey, you've led me onto Yaungu, kind of thing. And it really brought some kind of third-party thing, in the family setting, and it created a lot of tension and what have you. And, so and especially because you see people who you look up to, like the Tiger Woods, etc., who are on top of their game, and then just bad choices, and then they go zooming down. I'm like, hey, Adjetey, this can be you. So these are things that could have sort of make me sit up and sort of hey, be careful. You could be next, because they are not superhumans. Or human beings as much as they are. And so these are a few things that I've learned from. When I see somebody, I don't gloat over people's downfall. I see it as a lesson, and more like, hey, it could be you. And so just make sure that you're clean, and if there are certain lifestyles that you're beginning to put on yourself, just cut it off. And so it's helped. I'll say that people's downfall has rather helped me in a way. Not that I'm looking out for people's downfall, but I've used that to really advise myself.
And you speak about your father and how strict he was, your mother, all endearing and
strict. He says the man was a tyrant.
Like
pray your own children don't say that.
You see, and I'm looking at that, and of course you got to live outside of the confines of your parents' home. I mean, your father was clearly pushing you towards the Western kind of family.
That's right.
With hindsight, would you say that the latency of that tyranny at any point in time, when you had to deal with some of these potential distractions, did it come up to help you to either avoid or better manage some of these situations?
I mean, I really don't know. I just think that I wasn't given a platform to air my views, to sort of let you know why I want this and not that. Why should you choose colors for me when I have a preference? I wasn't made to speak out. I don't have a voice, because everything has been done for me. I'd have to wait till I can do that on my own. I'm not paying the bills. I can talk. And this was the environment, and therefore I had to keep everything within me. Even though I'm not happy, I have to pretend, my dad's choice is the best for me. Even though we're maybe two different people. And so with hindsight, I'm careful not to repeat that with my son. And especially children of today, they will speak their mind out, and you just have to guide them.
He has one in his house.
And you just have to guide them, because sometimes it's like, hey, Charlie, I can remember I dare not do that to my dad. I'm like, hey, you're lucky, but get to know them more. I remember the times when we go to school, but dad would not say anything. You just play some of his favorite songs. But for me, when I pick up this boy, it's a time for me to know what he's thinking, what are the conversations at school with his friends. I try to come down at yo-yo kind of person.
Be a friend.
And then he speaks out and he drops certain words. I'm like, hey, oh, so this is what your mates are watching. And so then at PTA, we get to discuss some of these things, that this is what your children is watching, the influence that is happening on us. We should be able to all, put in the work, so that you don't think that you've done your part. When he goes to school, somebody is going to corrupt that. And makes it, And so it's for me to build that bond with him, and really allow him to speak his mind, and we're able to detect some of the things that he's bad things that he's picking up, and then we're able to guide him.
What is your mom also Ghana?
She is.
I see.
2 guys, yeah.
Wow. That's an interesting family.
Can you be
pure? No bend, no curve. No bend, no curve.
But he doesn't love kinky as much as the Fanti girl that's going to be coming after us. Caroline is coming up later this morning with a Sassy Cafe. And we're chilling with Pusha. Sorry, Adjetey Anang.
Who Nanaya, do we call a pentagenarian?
No, quinquagenarian.
A quinquagenarian.
Yeah.
Quinquagenarian.
I think I might.
Okay.
He doesn't look.
He turns 50 this year. In what weeks?
July 7th.
July 7th.
July 7th.
State of mind.
Pusha be solid guy.
Yeah.
I mean, those of you watching on Facebook, you see him talking with BB. Back then,
Yeah.
Akata, a push.
I know, right?
I mean, he made our lives pretty exciting.
Indeed, he did.
Yeah.
Indeed, he
Yeah.
did. Well, we've had a great time talking to you. I think that it would be nice to hear from our audience, just for about some 5 minutes. Let's take a few calls. You have a moment to ask Adjetey Anang a few questions.
Yeah, Nana Kwabinyonin says, Ara, Pusha, what a guy. And when that comes from Nana Kwabinyonin,
Yeah, one of our in fact, he's the Pusha of the
top fans
of the
super fans,
Asasi family.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Also, Kwabena Opoku Ajiman says, solid guy.
Wait, Kwabena Opoku Ajiman Benya.
I'm not too sure.
Kwabena Opoku.
Well,
That is a DP in that thing.
I'll have
The
to.
Kwabena, no, his head will fill up the DP. So if there's very little room in that photo, that is him.
See. He's got a nice beard and he's with a lady. I'm not sure if
No, it's not.
That's not him.
This would be Opokwajiman, Prof's son.
Oh well, there you go. He knows everybody does Aaron.
Yeah.
But yes, he says you're a solid guy.
Oh yeah. We can tell.
We
So the number to call or the numbers to dial are 0200009951. That's 0200009951 or 059-415-7777. I like mischief. I like spreading love. So please wear your headset. We have a caller on the line, and the caller might just, ask you a couple of questions. Good morning, madam. Thank you for calling the Asasi Breakfast Show. Please identify yourself and where you're calling us from.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Elo.
Hey. It's not good to lie. I lied here.
Oh,
Aren't you working?
Hi, how are you, Adjetey Anang?
Hey, darling. I'm fine.
look, this reaction is priceless.
Hi. Hi, Isha.
Hello, thank you so much. You're such a great sport. I mean, look, you should. We're going to send you the video of Adjetey's movement and the look on his face when he recognized that he was talking to you. But what sort of person is he? Is he always this quiet and composed?
Yes, I think largely he is. Largely he is.
I know love is supposed to cover a multitude of sin, but please be honest with us. The man's laughter tells me otherwise.
No.
Is he always this composed? Yes, I think so. I mean, sometimes even to a fault.
Yeah, that's why his wife.
Because he typically doesn't react to the kind of things I would expect him to react to. His nature is very phlegmatic. He's always deeply thinking about things before he acts, even in the face of danger.
Wow.
He will take his time before he reacts.
Okay.
So usually that's how he is. Yeah.
So do you regret going on the set of Things We Do for Love?
Me? No, not at all. I found my husband, so I don't regret.
How regret.
Well, thank you very much, Elom. We know you have a very busy day, but you've been a great sport joining us on this conversation.
Thank you.
That, for me, made the entire conversation
you,
this
guys.
morning. Have a good day. Adjetey, your reaction, I swear, we are going to cut it. I'm going to sponsor it with my next salary. It will trend for 1 year. Look, it's been great talking to you, and we wish we would have continued more and more. But what's next for you? I mean, you won all the awards there. Are you producing something? What's next?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some a legacy, if you will, especially well, my memoir is coming up, and I think that it's about time chronicling my journey so far for the last 50 years, and especially where with a focus and lens on the young people, to know that it's not been it has not been rosy all along. I've made bad choices, I've made mistakes, and I'm going to be as what's the word? As honest and sincere, so that they know that when they come into those spaces that I found myself, they will make the right choice and be better, do better than we did or we have done. But also expect that there are few things coming up, and then we should all support and put our hands together. Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, we're thankful for your time on this Sassy Breakfast Show. We could have asked for a better last day to the month of May on the ABS. Adjetey Anang, celebrated actor and producer. We're thankful that you joined us.
Thank you for having me, as always.